Welcome back to even more Daily Rundown with me, Ashleigh Talbot, and my guests Stephen and Gaye. Now on with the discussion of the daily news, which is a speeding lorry driver has escaped a prison sentence after the family of the man he killed begged a judge to let him keep his freedom. The driver was going 47 miles an hour in a 40 zone when his truck smashed into the car, killing the car's driver. The truck driver received a 2-year driving ban, a 12-month prison suspended sentence, and was ordered to complete 200 hours of unpaid work. But the family of the victim spoke out to stop the man going to prison. They told the judge not to send the driver to jail because it would leave his children without a father. An incredible gesture of forgiveness. So, could either of you see yourselves doing something like that?
I think it's lovely. I think in my head, yeah.
You like to think you would.
But I don't know. I think it's, it'd be very difficult, wouldn't it? If it was you. I think with this story, it was a massive mistake, and I've obviously chatted to him and realised that he's got to live with that. The worst punishment that guy could probably have as a nice, upstanding member of the public, you've got to live with that. If it was very different and he was really being very reckless and he was drunk and he was this and he wasn't, but that would be a different, you know, that to me would be a different sort of story. The fact that he was going too fast, but I'm a driver. I'm sure there's, you know, I've gone a couple of miles over the speed limit, and perhaps that's what that family were thinking. It could have been any one of us.
Good and good on them. You know, as you say, it's, you know, great that they did what they did. I'm pretty convinced I wouldn't do it. I'd love to think I would.
Yeah.
But when you're caught up in all of that, you know, would I? I doubt it, to be honest, because you'd just be so focused on your loss and whatever else. But absolutely fair play to them. As you say, it depends on the circumstances, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And it's obviously, you know, what the guy did was bad and was breaking the law, but it wasn't as if he was drunk or over the alcohol limit and was doing 60 miles an hour in a 40 limit or whatever. You know, it wasn't as bad as that. The effect is obviously as bad, but you know, fair play to them for doing it. It's a great thing and will have had an influence on the judge. It's not as if the guy's got off though. You know, he has got a suspended sentence. So if he did anything else, that then sort of kicks back in. He's doing his community service. He can't now drive, and he was a lorry driver, so presumably, you know, can't do the job he did and so on. It's not as if, and furthermore, as you say, he's got to live with it.
Yeah, that's exactly right, and that's what the woman from the family who'd, you know, lost the car driver was saying, was that there's enough suffering in the world, and they don't need to, they certainly don't want to impose any more suffering on this man's family by insisting that he be sent to jail. Yeah. Which, again, you like to think that you would behave like that, but the family that have done this, you know, they did a radio segment with the BBC earlier today, and they don't sound like, you know, they don't make a big show of being compassionate. They're just like you or me. They're just, the way you know, this woman being completely real and honest, and it was just like it seemed, you know,
a natural thing to do.
It's a lovely
almost.
thing. It's a really lovely thing, and I wish in my heart I could.
Yeah, I agree.
But if it was a loved one, I'm not sure that I'd be like gunning, or, you know, you wouldn't want it consuming you, you know, that loss. But I'm not sure if I'd probably just keep out of it. I'd just let the judge deal and sentence and do what they thought was fit.
Yeah. And most would do that, wouldn't they?
Yeah.
I suppose what we don't know is, because unless you've sat through the court case, you don't know how people behaved and exactly what they said and all that sort of stuff. And it's always dangerous. You see it time and time again when there's the result of a court case, and you look at the result and you think, how could that possibly be? But actually, you've not been there and heard all the evidence. You've just seen a little bit, you know, some coverage in the media, which, you know, can obviously not always be as straightforward as it should be. So in this particular instance, we don't know what's been said and who, and how people behaved, just even during the case, the court hearing, court case. I'm sorry, and that may have had an impact as well, because that might have led the victim's, the dead person's family to actually be thinking, do you know what, enough, convicted, punishment, but is prison really the answer? And that's the crux of it, is prison the answer in this instance? And a lot of times prison is not the answer for, a lot of
number of
reasons.
Yeah, absolutely. It was very interesting during the coverage for this, was, again, that honesty from the victim's family, but apparently after they got up and stood up in court and begged for clemency, essentially. And so after the case was over and they were sort of all outside on the courthouse steps, as it were, and they went over to the lorry driver and hugged him and his wife. And there was that sort of connection made, and that human connection, rather than that's my adversary, that's the person.
That's it. Which is actually a bit of a miracle, given the necessary, certainly the way that court system works, which is adversarial, if that's the word. By definition, it's right, wrong. It's that's how it works. So at the end of it, to actually make that human connection through all of that is, just outstanding.
Yeah, absolutely.
It really is.
Yep. So, sure, we've used all the superlatives we can, I think. So maybe move on to something we can all get really annoyed about, which is that today thousands of rail passengers face delays and cancellations across England after overhead electric wires stopped working in the Midlands. Services affected include routes to London, Edinburgh, Manchester, North Wales and Southampton. Some people have waited more than 7 hours for a replacement transport. So, as this keeps coming up on the Daily Rundown, we have to ask the question, is Britain just rubbish at public transport?
If there's leaves on the track, we're going nowhere.
Yeah, and it's the wrong kind of snow, and if it's too wet, and if the sun has been too strong, because that can warp, it's really
infuriating, isn't it? If you want to get from A to B, you've all got your own stories, you've all got your own... but we do love a moan, don't we?
Oh, yes, that's why we're here.
Yeah, we do, and... I used to use the trains a lot, and I can't say I've been that held up, a little bit held up. We don't seem to be able to just, do you know what, I'm just going to get a coffee and a book and I'm just going to wait, and we seem to get cross, and then the more we speak to people, we get even crosser, and then they've got a reason to be getting from A to B, and you're trying to make your reason even more important than their reason, and it just goes on. But yeah, I mean, we pay a fortune for rail. It should be right.
Yeah, I think that's the thing that today's example, this particular example, is a horrendous sort of problem for those involved, and it just is, full stop. But the more general point, obviously, is, as you say, or question is it? Are we just rubbish at it? And we're not completely rubbish, but it isn't what it should be.
No.
The amount
you go on to most of our train stations, and I'm not talking about the big ones, although some of them are still really bad, but you go on to most of the train stations around the country, and there's no facilities, and there's little shelter from the elements, and you go on a lot of our trains, for example, Northern Rail. Northern Rail trains are pacer trains, I think they're called, those ones that are like buses. In fact, they're like old buses on the rail, on the rails. The quality of those is a disgrace in a country like Britain that invented the railways. There's something fundamentally wrong with the quality, and then, in addition to the rail aspect, the integration of transport. So we privatise all the public transport, apart from in Greater London, because Greater London was a special case.
It was much more important.
And funnily enough, Greater London has the most integrated and successful transport system in Britain.
Never.
Now, I would suggest there's an argument to say that in other parts of the country, privatising it and splitting it all up with somebody trying to oversee it was bound to result and it not actually all sort of integrating and talking to each other. It is just rubbish compared to what it should be.
It's got to be good in London though, because no one wants to drive there. I mean, they do. There's loads of cars in London.
There is that aspect. But if the public transport was better in other parts of the country, I'm quite convinced people would use it more.
I know, I agree.
They would. And it's just, it's things like the station's rubbish. It's things like the train. You think, I'd rather be in my car than be in this.
And
the horrible train. It costs too much.
In some cases, it's, if you're going cross country, it's usually about the same price as getting a tank of fuel. And
that's
you can fly cheaper. I used to work down in London, and I used to get a train down quite a lot because I didn't want to drive in London. And quite often it was cheaper to fly.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
So it's coming to something when an aircraft is cheaper than something that used to be a public, like a nationalised government-owned public transport system. Maybe it's never been perfect, but where did it go so horribly, horribly wrong? I know the problem today is there was an incident. You don't tell you what's happened. It's just been described as an incident with a train and the electric live wires. So that got stuck. But then again, why is that taking all day to resolve?
Yeah.
It's...
Yeah, I wonder whether that is actually the way to come at it, but in the sense that whatever's happened, the overhead wires are down or broken or whatever it is. They are kaput, to use the technical transport term. So these things will happen, and that will have a horrendous effect. But the bigger questions are actually just the day-to-day, even when it's not that bad. Yeah. It's never really as you would want it. It's overcrowded, it's too expensive, the facilities are rubbish, those are the issues. And we've got something wrong somewhere as regards the financial aspects of our public transport when that's the case.
Yeah, absolutely. So I really do. I'm sorry to interrupt. We've got to go for a break, I'm afraid. But hopefully Northern Rail are watching. See, we've got your colour scheme and everything. But that's all we've got time for in this part of the show. Next up, we've got a chat from a Manchester-based theatre company with a new play. So I'll see you in a couple of minutes.